What's up guys, welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Riddell, and in today's video I'm going to be going over a game I had against FM Mark the Deck on the Coffee Chess YouTube channel, one of the best and most popular chess channels out there right now. And if you guys haven't heard of Coffee Chess, it's basically a channel where a group of guys, maybe 10 to 12, come together, play some blitz chess, sometimes talk some trash, and overall just have a good time. Now, as I mentioned, here I was playing with white against FM Mark the Duck with the black pieces, guys. And honestly, the Duck is probably the best player on the channel. FIDE master, brilliant player who is really good in all areas of the game. And here with the white pieces, I started off with E4. And here the Duck went with the off-key move, B6. Now, this is a very Duck-like move. And what do I mean by this? Well, usually, guys, FM Mark the Duck will go with moves that the opponent usually doesn't see very often, going against opening theory. Usually, against a move like E4, here black would play something like the French, E5, the Perk, the Scandinavian, the Carl Khan, or the Sicilian. These are the main 6 moves for black. But here, the Duck goes with B6, looking to create a position that I'm not used to seeing. Now, against the move B6, I continued with knight C3, and then F4, trying to make a Grand Prix type setup. And after E6, I played knight F3. And here, guys, after knight F6, attacking the pawn on E4, I played D3. But if I had to do it again, I would have went with the move E5, an aggressive move, taking over the center of the board and attacking the knight on F6. And guys, the reason I didn't play this is because I was worried about the bishop on B7 becoming active. But here, guys, white is completely fine. In fact, white is clearly better. After the move knight d5, I can simply snatch that knight off the board, play a move like d4, and here white has a space advantage and can play a move like bishop d3, castle kingside, with ideas of playing f5, and I would give a clear advantage to white here. But guys, instead of playing the move e5, here I went with d3, not a bad move, defending the pawn on e4. And here, guys, after d5, we now see that the pawn on e4 is under immense pressure. The pawn on d5 is attacking it, the knight on f6 is attacking it, and the bishop on b7 is attacking it. So now the clearly best option for white is to play e5. And now after knight g8, I played d4, and after knight e7, I went with bishop d3. Now, guys, here the Duck realized that one of my pieces had more activity than his. I have a very strong bishop on d3, and honestly, guys, Duck's bishop on b7 isn't really doing much. It's honestly just a tall pawn. So here Duck plays bishop a6, looking to trade his bad bishop for my good one. Very good chess strategy. And here, after castling kingside, the Duck took on d3, and after queen takes d3, played queen d7. Now here, guys, against queen d7, I played a4, basically looking to create some space on the queen side of the board. And after knight bc6, I continued with b3, and after knight f5, I played knight e2. Here we see that the knight on c6 and the knight on f5 are attacking my pawn on d4. So here I played knight e2, looking to defend it and also prepare c3, really connecting the pawn chain. And here, guys, after h5, I continued with c3, and after a5, I played bishop a3. Now, guys, yes, I could have played a move like bishop d2 or bishop b2, but here, guys, I realized that all my pawns are on dark squares. f4, e5, d4, c3. The bishop really wouldn't be doing much. On the flip side, the bishop on f8 would be pretty active because black's pawns are on light squares on e6 and d5. So similar to what the Duck did earlier for trading his bad bishop for my good one, I did the same thing by playing bishop a3. And after bishop takes a3, we have rook takes a3. And after knight ce7, I continued to push with c4, really trying to create some tension in the center of the board. And after d takes c4, we have b takes c4. And after c5, we have queen e4. Now, guys, I have to be completely honest. I really don't think that this queen e4 option was the best move. I think better was d takes c5. Idea being after b takes c5, I can now play queen takes d7 check. And after king takes d7, white has an advantage in time and activity, as I could play rook d1 check, attacking the king on d7. And after king c6, play rook b1, followed by the very strong move rook b5. Guys, look at the activity of this rook on b5, attacking a5 and c5, and honestly just being pretty annoying for the black camp. And if black ever does take that rook on b5, I can continue with a takes b5, now having a supported passed pawn. And after king b7, I can continue with knight g5, attacking that f7 pawn. And here, guys, black is going to lose a pawn, because if rook f8, we have rook takes a5. There's just too much going on, and white has a one game here. But guys, with it being a blitz game, I went with my intuition and I played queen e4, looking to centralize my queen and attack that rook on a8. Here, guys, we have the move rook c8, looking to, first off, stop the threat of queen takes a8, and also activate this rook on c8, as it now is potentially eyeing the pawn on c4. And here, guys, I made a mistake. I think the best move here would have been, again, to take on c5 or play a move like rook c1. Basically, guys, the idea of rook c1 is to defend the c4 pawn and at the same time be defending the a4 pawn. But here I played rook d3, an absolutely huge mistake, as now the a4 and c4 pawns are pretty weak to attack. My idea was to push with d5, creating a passed pawn and eventually maybe even a d6, and try to create some attacking chances. But here the duck was able to play the pretty simple c takes d4, and after knight e takes d4, here the duck had two choices: taking on c4 with the rook or taking on a4 with the queen. Either work, but here the duck went with queen takes a4, and I now played knight takes f5, followed by knight d4. And after queen takes c4, we now see that black is ahead 2 pawns, and I play the move knight takes f5. Now, guys, when this game was posted on the Coffee Chess YouTube channel, a bunch of people were saying, wait a second, why can't black just take the queen? Well, guys, the problem is after queen takes e4, we now have knight d6 with check, an absolutely catastrophic fork for the black camp, as now this knight attacks the king, rook, and the queen on e4. And here, guys, after king e7 and knight takes e4, it's pretty obvious that white has a one game here. White is up a full piece for only 2 pawns on b6 and a5. This knight can come to d6, it can come to g5. We can double up the rooks and try to come to d7. This is completely winning for white. So, guys, obviously the duck did not want to take my queen, but instead took the knight on f5. And here, guys, after queen takes f5, the duck castled queenside. Now here, guys, I continued with rook g3. And really, guys, what we see in this position is that black has a clearly better game and is a pawn ahead, including 2 passed pawns on b6 and a5. Now, I can't take the pawn on h5 because my rook on d3 would fall. So here in this position, with it being a blitz game, both of us not having a ton of time at this point in the game, I said, okay, my only chance is to aggressively go after the king on g8. So here I played rook g3, looking to eye that pawn on g7. Now here the duck went with the strongest possible move with rook c6, really being resourceful, allowing the rook to come eventually to g6 or h6. And now I was able to continue with queen takes h5. Now, guys, here the duck played queen e6, looking to defend the king on g8. But here the duck had a combination that would have gave black a clearly won game. If you'd like, you can pause the video real quick and try to figure out what is the best way for black to play here. Well, guys, assuming that you did pause the video, the best possible variation for black is queen d4 check, and after king h1, an absolutely decisive move with queen takes f4. What on earth is black doing here? Well, as you guys can see, white's attack is dwindling. The e5 pawn is really weak, and if rook takes f4, black could now play rook c1 with check, guys, and this game is about to be over. So yes, guys, the duck could have played queen d4 with check and then take the pawn on f4. But instead here, with not being a ton of time on the clock, duck played queen e6. And here, guys, I continued with f5. Yet another mistake on my part. I think better was the move rook h3, threatening to play queen h8 with checkmate. But instead, I played f5, allowing queen takes e5. And here, guys, after queen takes e5, I was planning on playing rook h3. And this is probably what duck was afraid of. But, guys, after the move rook h3, black could just play rook h6. And again, black is clearly better. But here, guys, the duck played queen h6, and I continued with queen g4. Here, guys, I have an attacking advantage. And when you're attacking, you don't want to trade down. When you're defending, you do want to trade down. So here, guys, I played queen g4, mounting the pressure against that pawn on g7. And here the duck continued with queen h7. Here the duck's idea was probably, after rook h3, to play rook h6. But here, guys, I wasn't going to play rook h3. I played f6, again, mounting more pressure on that pawn on g7. And after rook e8, I continued with queen d7, guys. And here white has three threats: taking the rook on e8 with checkmate, taking the rook on c6, and taking the pawn on g7. This is a completely winning game for white, and there's just too much going on for the duck to hold everything together. So here the duck played rook ce6, giving up the queen, as now I was able to play rook takes g7 with check, and after queen takes g7, f takes g7, and now, guys, here we see rook 6 e7, followed by queen g4, looking to defend that pawn on g7. And here, guys, after rook takes e5, I realize that I have a very strong, well, potentially strong pawn on h4. So I started to throw it down the board with h4, followed by h5. And here, guys, after b5, I played queen f5. And after rook h e7, I played queen takes b5, which I think was a mistake. Now, again, it's not a bad mistake in terms of, like, it's not a losing mistake. Now, white is still completely winning this game. But, guys, I played queen takes b5 because I thought that white's attack was pretty much done. But, guys, white's attacking chances are far from over. In fact, white's attacking chances are completely crushing here, as I could play queen g5 with the idea of playing h6 or queen h6. What do I mean by this? Well, black has two choices: either to move the rook on e6 or to not move the rook on e6. Let's say that black moves the rook by playing a move like rook e5. Well, now I'd be able to creep in with queen h6, threatening checkmate in one with queen h8, and the only way to stop this is to take that pawn on h5, take the pawn on g7, and again, this is even more winning for white, and white's going to go on to win this game pretty quickly. So rook e5 doesn't work because of queen h6. What if black doesn't really do anything and just plays a move like b4? Well, now I'm able to play h6 with the idea of playing h7 with check. And after a move like rook e8, which is black's best possible move, I'm still going to play h7 check. And after king takes h7, play g8 equals queen. And after rook takes g8, take that pawn on f7, play queen h4 check, and this game is over. So yes, guys, queen g5 is absolutely winning this game for white. But here I played queen takes b5, not a ton of time on the clock, and white is still going to win this game. Well, that's supposed to be how it goes anyways. After queen takes b5, the game continued with king takes g7, and after queen takes a5, we have king h6, and I now brought the queen back to f5, and after king g7, I played g4. Now, guys, up to this point in the game, right now, I had around 45 seconds left. There was not a ton of time, so all of these moves were pretty blitzed out. We saw in the game king g8, followed by g5. I brought the queen to f6, back to f4. I played queen b8 check, absolutely frantic, trying to move my pieces so I don't run out of time. And after rook e8, I played queen g3. And after rook e3, I played rook f3. Notice, guys, how here I'm just kind of slowly creeping up the board. I didn't have much other option, as there wasn't a ton of time on the clock. After rook 2 e5, I continued to creep up the board with king h4, followed by rook f4. And here, guys, after rook e1, I played g6. And after rook h1 check, I played king g5. And here, guys, I have a question for you. After rook e5 check, white has 4 different moves here. Which of these moves is the absolutely worst option? Pause the video if you like and try to find the worst move for white. Now, guys, assuming that you did have the chance to pause the video and try to find the worst move is king h6, and that is what I played. Better than king h6 is literally anything. Playing rook f5, playing king f6, playing king g4. But here, guys, with seconds left on the clock, I think I had about 18 seconds, I played king h6. And yes, guys, in a turn of events, here the duck played rook e takes h5. I thought that I was about to hunt some duck down for the winner, but the duck ran away. And in fact, the duck got me. And there you guys have it. I somehow managed to lose a position in which I was ahead, both a pawn and a queen for a rook. Not going to lie. This is probably one of the most heartbreaking moves I've ever played. But it did end with a very fun finish. And honestly, guys, at Coffee Chess, we're all about having fun. And I had a ton of fun playing against such a great player like the duck. So, guys, I do hope that you enjoyed this game analysis. I think both of us played some good moves and both of us played some bad moves. So hopefully you learned a little bit from both our good and our bad. Let me know what you thought of this game. Let me know what you thought of the analysis. And let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. I enjoy making chess videos for you guys, and I'm super excited to hear what you guys want to see. Peace. Thanks for watching today's video. If you'd like to watch another one, you can click or tap up here. And I've got a lot more high-quality chess content on the way. So if you'd like to subscribe, you can click or tap down here. I really appreciate your support.